All right, welcome everybody to the Blueprint on How to Turn Goals into Achievement podcast for students. I am your coach and speaker and host, Andres Ruiz, and today we have a very special guest. I've had the privilege of chatting with her a little bit today, and her name is Adriana Sanchez, and she is a College Alumni Advisor at San Antonio Independent School District, providing support services to high school graduates who want to pursue post-secondary plan. At SAISD, Adriana brings her expertise in creating success strategies in assisting underserved populations, managing federal grants, overhauling areas of recruitment, advising and retention, and designing educational pipelines for opportunity for youth. Man, that's a lot of stuff that you do. That's amazing. And then Adriana's reputation is built on her innate ability to collaborate, identify, and design solutions, and draw from her own experiences as a first-generation Latina in higher education. Her experience spans working at TRIO programs, Hispanic Serving Institutions, and the #1 innovative university in the U.S., which serves as her foundation to decrease the educational inequities and increase educational attainment for all students. Amazing. Thank you for being on the show, Adriana. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure. It's a lot of good stuff that you're doing. I really appreciate everything you do. And like we were talking about earlier, like you're helping us, helping the youth, for the future. And I really appreciate that. So thank you for being on. And, I always like to get the show started with asking the guests to kind of brag about themselves, because I think it's important for us to talk about ourselves from time to time. And so I want to ask you, Adriana, what would you say is your superpower?
I love this question. My superpower is the ability to see things from multiple perspectives. In all of the roles that I've held, I've had to really advocate not only for students, but even advocate for myself as a director of TRIO programs for my students, to make sure that they have services or they have things that they need. And so kind of working with Department of Ed, working with leadership at institutions, I really need to understand, first off, where are my students coming from? Because if they tell me that they can't afford to go to college, that can mean multiple things, right? And I could just take it for face value and be like, whatever, they just can't go to college. So, but for me, it's more than that. The ability to see different perspectives and hear everybody, listen to what they're telling me, and really make that a transformative piece in getting our students through the educational pipeline.
I love that. Yes, good. And I like how you take the time to get to know these kids. I think that's a very important factor, because everybody's different. We can't treat everybody the same. And, I think that's a very important skill set to have. So I love what you just mentioned right now. That's definitely, everything that you said right there is definitely a superpower. So thank you for sharing that. And so just kind of give us an overview of the work that you do as the College Alumni Advisor.
Okay, so it's quite a bit, but it's a fancy term. Basically, we provide support to our recently graduated high school students who haven't done anything. So they've not gotten a job in the workforce. They have not enrolled in college. Maybe they want to do those things, but they don't know how to get started. So what I do is I work with a team who reaches out to our alumni and says, hey, did you want to go to college? Are you interested? I see that you talked to your college bound advisor when you were in high school and you wanted to go do automotive. We have a program for you. So really providing them those support services that they probably wouldn't have access to or even know about programs, right? The education doesn't just, span at a 2 and a 4 year college. It can be vocational programs that are offered through Goodwill services. The city of San Antonio offers some training programs with workforce development. And this has all come about really with the advent of COVID, and it's given our students more opportunities to be out there. So it's really a career and college readiness role. But in this role, I work one-on-one with students, and then I'm also working with the San Antonio ISD Foundation. They bring in a lot of money for small grants that I work on, and we oversee along with another colleague of mine. And so we do a lot of administrative stuff figuring out how are we going to contact these students? What does this look like? How are we going to go talk to Valero Energy and tell them how our students are doing in college? So anything from what I say onboarding in college, so anything from admissions to college applications to financial aid. And then sometimes it's being that shoulder to cry on, right? So a student might tell me their issues, their problems, why they can't go to college. So my role is really to listen to them and find out what is preventing them from go to college, if that's what they want to do, or go and get a career. And how do I help them find that avenue that they want to, and help them see that, because everybody has a place in this world. And I truly believe that. And maybe it might not be college, maybe it might be college. But I think that, we have to help these students, because COVID took away a lot of things and the ability for students to ask questions. So I kind of have to be that mind reader and probe a little bit more and say, hey, tell me a little bit more about that. I know that's a lot.
No, it's perfect. I love it because, like you said, and I love how you said that, just giving them a shoulder to cry on. Sometimes it's not just about the school. And it reminds me of one of the people that I work with at Upward Bound, where they said these kids, what they need is they need to manage their stress first, because if they don't manage their stress, they can't perform. And so they were like, can you bring in something where help them with stress management? I kind of like just talk to them about the stressors that they're having and help them, give them like little simple tools to overcome these stresses. So I love how giving them that shoulder to cry, they need that, and I love how, because that shows that you really care about them when you give them that opportunity to just vent and just being okay to be tired and kind of like, just being, hey, I'm here for you. So that's amazing that you do that for them. And, kind of like talking about with like the future for these kids, what would you say in having your career, like in higher ed or going to college, what would you say it takes to be successful at what you do?
Yeah, I actually kind of fell into higher ed. It was not my career choice. As most individuals in higher ed kind of just fall into it. I started my career in higher ed as a work study. Actually, I was a TRIO Upward Bound student, and I wanted a work study job. And so my director of the program said, hey, we have something for you. So I did all of my years in higher ed, and he was getting his doctorate in higher ed, but I didn't put two together that was even a field to go into. But I actually ended up going into child protective. I got my degree in sociology, went into child protective services, then found a need in terms of educating women, because I worked in a very specialized unit. And so helping them get on their feet, get an education, how, so that their children aren't getting abused, and ending that cycle. And then my sister called me. She's 3 years younger than me. And I left child protective services because it was stressful. It was hard on me. And I moved to Chicago, and I thought, you know what? I've got a retail job. I'll work out there. I'll figure something out in social services, because I really love helping people. Mm-hmm. And so the market was competitive. I needed a master's degree. And my sister said, hey, there's this program. I think you should look into it. I just started my master's program. So we went together and did this thing. But I think in terms of going to college, or even in the field of higher ed, you need to have agility. Higher ed is so much more than just helping kids get to college. I mean, you can do anything. It's like its own town, is what I tell students. It has its own mail center that you can mail out things. You have health services on campus, so you can work in those areas. There's different areas you can work in higher ed, but truly it's a helping field. So if you have a passion to serve others, help them along their journey, get places. For me, it was, I utilized my experience in college. I got a scholarship my sophomore year to the University of Northern Iowa, and I read about it in the newspaper, and they were offering it at the community college. I was attending the 4-year, and they said, well, we don't typically do this, but since your grades are great, we're going to go ahead and offer this to you. You can keep your grades up. Nice. Long story short, something happened while I was on campus. I did not know how to deal with it. I flunked out. And I hid in my dorm room, and I would call my family every day, and I was afraid to go outside of my dorm. And I wish one soul had just reached out to me to see if I was okay out of this group of Latinos that they had brought up to Iowa. And I remember that feeling of being lost and not having that sense of belonging. So when I decided to go back and get my master's degree in higher education, that's something that I knew that I wanted to do, was make sure that I was that person that was knocking on the doors of students that were silently dropping out or silently trying to skirt under the radar because of things that had happened to them on campus, whether they were assaulted or they flunked out an entire year and thought I'm a failure. Or it was, some stalking incident, whatever the case may be. Just wanted to help those students like me get through college. Colleges do a great job of recruiting students, but they don't always do the best job in trying to keep the students there. And so that's what I wanted to bring to the table. So like I said, agility, problem solving, patience, a lot of patience, passion, and grit, because it's not for the faint of heart. You're going to hear stories. You're going to come across people who will touch your lives in ways you didn't even know existed, and you may even have crying sessions with them. So, I think those things help you along with perseverance.
That is so good, man. Like, that was so powerful what you just mentioned, and I really love your story, and thank you for being so willing to share that with us, because some kids are thinking, oh, well, I have to pick one thing. And you are, an example of, I went here and then I went there, and you did a lot of things, and you went through some struggles in life. You wish you would have had somebody that have been there and said, hey, Adriana, I'm here for you. Are you okay? Or just a check-in,
Yeah.
That is so powerful for you to share that with us. And your story is definitely going to be impacting a lot of people on this show. So thank you for being so willing to share that. And as we're talking about challenges, what would you say are the 3 challenges you have been noticing college students having lately?
Yeah, with the advent of with COVID, the online learning experience had been one thing that students had to adjust to. That was a huge challenge for them, and particularly students who had started dual credit in high school, right? Or they did the AP or dual enrollment. And so what we were seeing across the board at our district is that our students were flunking out, not because they wanted to, right? Because nobody ever says, I'm going to set foot on campus and I'm going to fail this class. And that usually tells me when a student has a 0.0 GPA, there's something else working underneath, and we've got to find out what that is. And so for us, it was students were taking on more adult responsibilities. Parents were catching COVID. Breadwinners were losing their jobs. So they took on those responsibilities. I had a lot of students, because we live here in San Antonio, which is about 8 hours from the border. So, their parents getting deported, dealing with those type of real issues and not saying a thing because they were too embarrassed, because they didn't know where to ask for help. They maybe had reached out to the professor and the faculty, just as students were learning with this online, were not as forgiving because they couldn't understand, they couldn't empathize with those students. And so sometimes you see this disconnect culturally with faculty members and students. And this can be a racial disparity. This can also be just, faculty, these are the rules, this is how it is, this is how I run my class. And so what I was trying to do with those students is okay, you failed out. What do we do next? This is not the end of the road. There's always an appeal. So y'all watching, there's an appeal to an appeal to an appeal in college. So if you fail out, I failed out, my sophomore year, like I said, something bad happened and I was assaulted on campus, and I was embarrassed to tell my parents and things, and I didn't ask for help. But you have to dust yourself off, and you have to get in there, get that appeal, make sure you get reinstated. And then thinking that there's only one pathway to success. That's the other thing. And I think this is the onslaught of social media, right? Social media can be a great opportunity to put yourself out there and do things, but at the same time, it's that double-edged sword. It'll cut you down, but remember, it's only 5 seconds in time that people take a snapshot and say, this is my life, it's so perfect, I'm going to do this. And I I made all A's. They could be lying through their teeth that they made all A's. And then they go home, because I've had this happen with some of my students, and then they have to tell their parents, then their parents are in my office asking me what happened. So guys, remember, social media is not your best friend when it comes to looking at your friends. Don't compare your story to Johnny Joe's or Tommy Sue's story, because it's not. Your journey is just going to be different. And so we often think that there's only one pathway, the 4-year. There's multiple pathways, and with the advent of COVID, like I said, there's so much money that had been given to colleges and universities to start up these certification programs for students. So knowing that you don't have to have a medical studies degree to go to be a doctor. I didn't need a higher ed degree to go into higher ed. I had a sociology degree. Right. And so understanding that your major doesn't always equal your career. It's about the opportunities that you put forth in yourself, whether it's an internship or study abroad experience, or just getting, talking to somebody, doing an interview, kind of like what you're doing with me, to get to know that experience. And if you think you like that field of study, go ahead and do that. And then, like I said, the other one was taking on adult responsibilities, not because they wanted to, but because the situation at hand. Wow.
Yeah, those are definitely some big challenges. And the one about kind of like taking on the parent role, I've had it where I've been in TRIO programs, or like the ETS programs, where kids are saying, yeah, I'm taking care of my 4 siblings while my mom is working, and I can't do my work because they're being too loud, or they're fighting, and I have to break up fights, and they can't do it. And so they're like, what do I do? And then they have to take on like kind of like the parent role. And some of them sometimes say, I don't even know if I want to be a grown-up. I don't know if I want to grow up, if this is it, like, I don't want to do this, And so wow, like, thank you for sharing that. And then also thank you for sharing your own, personal experiences again, and sharing your insights of how to deal with that. Do you have any other tips, like on how to deal with these challenges, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Asking for help when you need it. We're not mind readers. Like, we want to help you. We came into this profession to help you. Yeah, and you'll find somebody who is grumpy and crotchety, but at the end of the day, if you find that person, say, I want to speak to somebody else. I'd like to speak to or rephrase the question. If they're not, if you feel like somebody's not answering your question at hand. I've seen it because a lot of times in my role, I meet the students up at the community college to help them get enrolled. And so I'll say, when you get up there, you're going to say, hi, my name is so-and-so. This is my banner ID, and I'm here to do this. They get up to the point of their banner ID and they look at me because they're afraid to talk. And I'm like, no, you've got this. And so then I'll hear them struggle with asking those questions, but ask for help when you need it. Colleges, like I said, it's kind of like its own city. So if you're dealing with those adult problems, taking on those responsibilities, COVID brought a lot of money. So there was free money that they were given to students, if they needed help with electricity and with food and certain other things. We have access to community resources. So whether that's housing that you need to get secured, or like I said, food before, a lot of schools have food banks that are available to you. But with the addition of that, talking to your advisor about what's going on, because they may be able to say, you know what, you have a lot on your plate. Maybe you should take one course. It doesn't have to be the full-time experience. And giving up is way too easy. Knock on all the doors that you possibly can. I don't care. Like when they told me I couldn't come back to school because I was on academic suspension, I was like, okay, I may not be able to go there, but I'm going to go to the community college. And so that's what I did. And I started knocking on doors and asking for help. And then, you have the help of your high school counselors. If you have made a connection in high school, your TRIO advisors, your TRIO directors, ask them for that help. I know it seems embarrassing, but that's really at the scope of every problem that I've kind of mentioned. Asking for help is the biggest thing. And I know it's the hardest thing as a human being to be humble enough to say, I really need help, but please ask for it, because we don't know how to help you if you can't articulate that.
Good stuff. Yeah. Asking for help, man, that's something that I've seen a lot of students struggle with. And you don't need to struggle that way. You ask for help, you know, and I think sometimes it's just a learned behavior that we have, like from our parents that never ask for help, especially as a Latino, you know, I never saw them they ask for help, you know, they'd be like strong, but we gotta ask for help. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. That was so good. How would how did you like, because I mean, of course, asking for help, and this kind of ties into the next question is, how did you find help and mentorship for, you know, what you do? And like during college and all that good stuff.
Yeah. So in college, when I fell flat on my face, failing, right, I had to learn how to ask, like, okay, I can't come back here. How, if I wanted to come back, what did that look like? And so I think I came, because of TRIO, it allowed me the opportunity to ask a lot of questions. So I felt comfortable asking for questions. It was hard, don't get me wrong, because I had to suck up my pride and go talk to somebody who might possibly tell me it ain't happening. Yeah. And then, you know, throughout college, I started talking to people and what do you want to do and how did you get there? So a lot of informational interviews with people that I thought I wanted to have career opportunity in. And then when it came to higher ed, I was working in retail management at the time. And so a lot of people in my program couldn't see how my experience in retail was all connected. You know, it's customer service, right? Yeah. So as you're working as an advisor, it's customer service as well. So they couldn't see that transition. They're like, you're never going to make it. So like, we can't, it's not the same thing. And I go, well, it is a business enterprise because you're taking tuition monies from students and you're providing them a service. And they're like, no, because, you know, you want to be prideful about what you do, I guess. And so what I will say about that is I was in my history of higher ed class and I was talking to my professor, Dr. Alderman, and she kind of said something about retention and she worked in this area. And so I kind of, you know, shared with her my experience after class one day. And I said, look, I'm looking to break the ceiling with trying to get into higher ed. I don't care. I will do it for free. I just need experience because I want to make this transition from social services, retail to higher ed. And I need some help. And so she said, yeah, you know what? I think I might have an opportunity for you, Adriana. When do you think you could start? And I said, well, I'm taking 2 summer courses in the same summer session. So it's going to be intense. And she said, okay, contact me after July. And I still remember my hire date, July 12th. And I became a graduate assistant over at St. Mary's University with Dr. Alderman. She was this Puerto Rican that you wouldn't even know. She had really light skin, red hair. But she gave me my first opportunity in higher ed, and it was in retention. It was, you know, she knew I had the passion for it, and I did a lot of data research. And then I want to say my second year with her, there was an opportunity to do data. I had already been doing data, and I loved it. And she pushed me to work for the Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities to apply for this internship. And I was terrified. I'm like, I don't know if I'm good enough, that imposter syndrome, right? Being first gen, I don't know if I'm good enough. And so I remember I was in Chicago, did the interview, got it. And I owe all of that, the career trajectory to Dr. Alderman. She was there. She gave her time to me. She said, I have something. I don't know if I can pay you. I said, I don't care. And then she found money to pay me at some point. And then I learned from other women, like some faculty members who were pretty well off doing research because I'm a nerd. I like that stuff. And then another colleague of mine, Dr. Dean Hellitzer over at Arizona State University, you know, she really was trying to transform the student experience in serving those underprivileged communities, right? But making sure all the voices were heard. And because I am Latina, I learned a lot from non-Latino individuals on how to present myself, how to push things forward, how not to, you know, passion sometimes in the Latino community is perceived as the barking chihuahua or the person that, like, you have too much emotion is what I had a leader tell me one time. Wow. You know, a leader's not allowed to cry. And I disagreed with that. you know, my passion is what drives me forward. So, you know, having different perspectives, like I said, other perspectives that were not my perspective
Mhm.
helped me, you know, kind of push forward and breaking the ceilings in my trajectory for my career.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, that was really good. And all these experiences that you've had, and it's really cool how you were humble enough to say, hey, you know what, I don't need money. Like, I give me the experience, and you were very smart, to do that. And now look at you. I mean, like, you got all these people that and I mean, everybody remembers somebody just like that. Like, so thank you for sharing that. So last question is, why is it important to stay hungry and humble at the same time when pursuing your goals?
Yeah, absolutely. This one I always ponder a lot about. But for me, it's nobody wants a know-it-all, right?
Yeah.
Nobody wants a know-it-all. But at the end of the day, it's your passion and your grit that drives you forward. Without that, without your values that keep you humble, you've kind of lost in the game at that point. So what I like to tell my students is that create some values for yourself. And by creating those values, you know where your boundaries are. So when somebody asks you to do something, like for me, integrity is a huge thing that I value. And so I've been at a place where, I had an internship and I said, this kid isn't really reporting stuff right. And I'm not trying to be a tattletale, but this makes us look bad because we have to report. We're an outside facing entity. So then our credibility will go out the window. And he doesn't just really care about this. He's just here to kind of collect his paycheck and be done with this. So if this doesn't get addressed, like, I am willing to leave the internship at this point, because you never want to work for an organization that will go against your values, because it just doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
But staying hungry means for you, like I said, the passion and that grit. Just keep persevering, moving forward. That's what motivates you to move towards and inch towards those goals that you're trying to achieve, whether that's college, whether that's a career, whether that's just like trying to figure out life. And then just staying humble enough to understand, hey, I never forget where I come from, right? My informal experience in college, which has helped me be grounded in my career. And it's opened up so many opportunities for me to be humble and to be hungry at the same time. Like I was sharing with you that story about, talking to the professor, like, I just want the experience. I just, I need this. So in that moment, I was showing my hunger and my humbleness, and I think that takes you far. People see it when it's genuine. And they will open up doors and opportunities that you never even thought you would have.
Yeah. Ooh, that was good, man. Oh, good stuff. Thank you for being on the show, Adriana. I mean, I learned a lot from you, and I learned a lot more about, these programs and the struggles that kids are having with. So I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you. And guys, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next episode on the Blueprint on How to Turn Goals into Achievement podcast for students. Have a great day. Peace.
Thank you. Bye.